Hello, welcome to Horizons, episode 89 review, and this is the end of Rayquaza Rising arc. And it's a big one, very status quo changing. First we begin with Terrapico's purifying Requiem, as Gibeon can't really do anything with the explorers gathering to watch their leader fall to their knees, as he laments his wish not being possible. And Mefio reassures him that he's been doing good work to reach that dream with Exceed anyway, and Mefio will follow his goal, and they'll work for future people and Pokemon together. Gibeon sees Zygarde leaving him as a failure, removing any right to talk about the future, but you know what, Lucius is back, and says, well, he must have some right to do so, as Zygarde had originally chosen Gibeon as a partner, and with its role of protecting the ecosystem, it wanted a good future. Lucius suggests it's time to trust the new generation again, prompting Gibeon to trust that a myth can take up the burden, and well, the two are passing on as they start to glow. They passed on messages of Rayquaza and Zygarde, got rid of Requiem, so Lucius says goodbye to his Pokemon and our lead characters. While Gibeon touches Mefio's head and tells him to continue the journey with Sarah Ledger at his side. So yeah, we're starting with a death pretty early, that's crazy, huh? I imagine it's a case that there's no Requiem to sustain them. It's a sad little moment because Lucy's always been great, and Gibeon's become a real highlight of this arc. Putting a seal on this story really adds to the finality of this arc. It's also cool to see how the ancient Pokeballs all unlock, hinting that the heroes now belong to Wild again. Don't remember if anything like that has been shown before. So Spinel goes on to waffle as disappointing, as he respected Gibeon, and thought he'd been one to inherit Gibeon's will. But now that Gibeon's gone, he's going to be evil as hell and surpass Gibeon. And he does that by pulling out Requiem Spheres and gassing the heroes. Which interestingly, Onyx and Sango ask what he's doing as the 6 heroes aside from Rayquaza are going berserk, and Spinel declares that Raikou belongs to the explorers. The 6 heroes erupt into battle. Roy yells at them but they aren't listening, and Friede sees that they can't fight at the moment. All of their Pokemon are exhausted, so Liko yells out too, and they get attacks launched at them. Luckily, Rayquaza is an absolute legend and protects them, seeming to gesture Roy specifically to say, hey, I've got this, get yourselves out of here. Which I find incredible, considering how much, Roy's been pursuing Rayquaza. Even now as a wild Pokemon, Rayquaza's still putting itself on the line because of this connection that's all between them. Really makes you interested to see where that'll go in the future. So Rayquaza fires off a Draco Meteor while the Rising Voltaculars run as the environment is taking some serious damage. Trees going over was one thing, but the actual ground is splitting. The wind's going crazy. But ground splitting knocks Liko over and she drops Lucy's belt and memoirs into a chasm, which I thought was such a great visual. It really does feel like the end of an era, but Friede tells them that they can remember Lucy's story to keep it alive. Hatchram decides to do something as it comes out to heal Pulse Charizard as he laments that they can't fly, so that's pretty great. Dot and Liko get back with Friede, while Roy takes Kilowattrel and they have to battle against tough winds and environmental hazards until they reach the end of the crater. Now to walk down the mountain. They worry about that because it is dangerous, and Friede reminds them that they have a home to return to and friends to rely on as a braver Sagi approaches. So yeah, there was a concern about the attitude before, so how's it doing this, right? Well, when Orla was preparing the ship, she'd included a button, where it activates a transformation, one that has a jet engine, so that's cool. And they call it the Infinite Rising, so there's a chance to fly up to an excellent remix of the Area Zero Wild Pokemon music. They have to get on the ship quick as the engine can't hold up. So we're on with braver Sagi, still battling the tough winds as the ship has to rise again. Friede and Charizard can't get a grip unlike the kids, and he and Charizard are blown down to the end of the ship, dangling above the skies. The kids screaming in absolute horror as Friede, Cap and Charizard all hold on for dear life with a jet engine exploding above them. Orla comes out to get them all in. So Friede grabs Cap, asks him to look after the others, passing him to Liko, giving the group one last smile as he and Charizard lose their grip, falling into a vast layer of cloud. So I've been talking about how Friede's been getting off the most obvious death flags, but seeing him actually taking out the story is surreal. Now, I don't think he's actually dead, but this is different to him not being around to Terrastral debut. I've been wondering if he fell into Rakua's crater, and if we'll see him try and deal with the explorers in a different way now that sort of opportunity has risen. But with that, we fade to black, with Liko saying it was the last thing we saw at the end of her adventure. And we find out that a year after, she's back at school. Having reminisced on her journey going to class of Anne, we go to Levincia, where a crowd watches a show thinking about what happened back to Mount Camuria a year ago, and that Spinel has become the leader of Exceed and the Explorers, framing a Rising Voltaculars for the damage done to the environment. Exceed is trying to restore the environment there. Also, there's something happening to a Pokemon across the world, which Spinel says the Explorers are sourcing out. Lastly, in a desert environment with Crocodile walking along after eating a berry, catching up to Roy, a Mega Ring on his wrist, a shiny Lucario next to him, Cap runs up onto his shoulder, with Roy and his team declaring they'll find them. Just what an incredible finale! It completely changed the status quo by ending the Lucius story for one, but freed out a plot for now. The first ever Pokemon anime time skip, just outstanding stuff. I love that Gibeon got such a good resolution. He finally saw the error of ways, and could pass on his will to someone who actually cared for him in Mefio, but having the side effect of Spinel seeing an opportunity to claim power, and basically achieving more than Gibeon had in this whole finale was pretty crazy. Honestly, I find it kind of interesting that Spindle even waited for Gibeon to be out of the way to betray him. It actually does make me believe Spindle when he says that he respected Gibeon, so basically was looking for any reason to betray him. It feels really sad seeing the 6 heroes get used by that. The whole duo has been helping to get rid of Rayquaza and looking for the heroes to help them save Lucius and put an end to Rayquaza once and for all. So while we got rid of Rayquaza, losing Lucius and getting hit with Rayquaza gas, sending them berserk, and well, who knows what happens to them from here. Who knows how long Rayquaza can fight them off too, but seeing it unaffected and able to fight its friends off is currently an open thread. I guess one thing that let me down was how during the escape race ended up using still images at one point. But I do wonder if part of that was how interesting can you really make flying out, you know? They had a tree fly at them, which Cap destroyed, and maybe that's the biggest sort of obstacle we could come up with. But that's such a minor nitpick when we've got such an incredible story here. And while I've spoken about Friede's loss already, I just need to go back to it because I think what I like about it is how they happened after they were safe. But on the Brave Asagi, they should have all been okay, but the disturbed environment led to us losing him. You have that sense of relief and then bam, Friede's gone. And seeing how a crew adapt to that will be so interesting. We already got some sort of hint with Liko saying it was a lasting genre adventure, having been out the adventuring game for a year. And it does lead very nicely into my final point, the time skip. The scene at the end a year on is one of the most impactful things I've seen in the Pokemon anime. Liko's not so much beyond letting us know that she stopped adventuring and went back to school, but Spindle having smeared the Rising Volt attacker's name and making real power play, which by the way, him outing, just outing Director Crave is incredibly funny. Having taken up a conservation project for the damage he really caused. It's so slimy. It's so great in a way, and it's making me love to hate this man. And Roy's scene, oh, it's just class. From Crocodile seemingly by himself to a much more seasoned looking Roy, actually having made progress in the years since. Going and getting a Mega Ring and a Lucario, you can just imagine he wouldn't be the type to give up adventuring. So change for him makes sense as opposed to Liko. We've had the time skip designs for a while now too, but Roy's is just such a standout. I'm kind of sad that he ditched the hat. But a Friede inspired jacket but sleeveless to make it still feel like Roy is top notch. And he just feels more mature. And his team using red, blacks and yellows with Cap seemingly on his team too. Oh, sign me up for the next arc. I need Roy in action now. So yeah, this arc ended Rayquaza Rising in just a perfect way. And it's left us with a fallout that needs to be addressed. I cannot wait for Mega Voltage.